so great to see you here. Thank you for attending this very special surprise pop-up event. I'm really grateful to the sponsors who made this happen, Visions and Voices and the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, but mostly I'm grateful to you, such short notice, for showing up for this very exciting, important, empowering event as we celebrate the release of the new book, Soul Boom Workbook, Spiritual Tools for Modern Living. Did anyone see Rain here last year when he came with the Soul Book Tour, the Soul Boom Tour? So last year, Rain was on campus with his other book called Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. In that book, Rain posits that a soul boom is the potential for a spiritual revolution to instigate transformation, both individually and collectively. It's the healing balm that our world so desperately needs right now. And with that, Rain also launched the Soul Boom podcast. So he created this larger conversation about spiritual revolution. And he's been engaging artists and thinkers and entrepreneurs in that conversation every week. Today, we will discuss his newest book, which just dropped, I think, last week. It's hot off the press. It's the Soul Boom Workbook, Spiritual Tools for Modern Living, that was written in collaboration with his friend and his colleague, Shabnam Moghrabi, who is also a USC alum. Readers now have a companion book filled with hands-on prompts, reflections, and creative activities, and that's what all of you will get today. Their approach to spirituality is relatable and applies to people of all beliefs, even skeptics. The journal will enable you, the reader, to find more purpose, more meaning, more spirituality in your hectic life as you seek out practical and transformative answers to the life's biggest questions. This evening, we're so fortunate to have both authors of this book with us here on campus. Rainn Wilson, if you might have heard of him, he's a highly acclaimed actor and producer. Since the late 1900s, he starred in some of our most beloved films and television shows like 6 Feet Under, Backstrom, Star Trek, Discovery, and Utopia, and films like Almost Famous, Juno, The Meg, and Badass. And of course, for the rest of his life and for many, many, many generations to come, Rainn will be known and loved as the shy, introverted, humble, soft-spoken character Dwight Schrute from The Office. Any Office fans here? Anyone loves Dwight the way I love Dwight? The Office is probably the most watched show in television history. That's what he said. The Office is probably the most watched show in television history, and Dwight is probably the most beloved character from that show. So you could argue that Rainn has brought to life the most beloved television character of all time, and that's how the world knows him. But I'm lucky to know him in a different way. I know him as an interfaith leader, as an author, as a storyteller, as an entrepreneur, as an environmentalist, as a podcaster, as someone who has fully embraced the spiritual pluralism of his Baha'i faith and brings it into the world. And I know Rainn as someone who always shows up for our students, just like he did this evening. We're also so lucky to welcome back to campus, back to her beloved alma mater, Shabnam Moghrabi, who was the president of the Interfaith Council 25 years ago here at USC.
You're aging me.
Sorry. Who is the co-author of this book. She is an accomplished entertainment executive, an entrepreneur with more than 20 years of experience. She's led media companies in strategy, growth, culture, and content. She's a lifelong student of positive psychology. And with Rainn, she co-founded the inspiring, mission-driven studio Soul Pancake, which she ran as CEO for nearly a decade before a successful exit to Participant Media. Under her leadership, Soul Pancake amassed 1 billion plus views, claiming 12 million plus social media fans and producing more than 50 hours of award-winning television. Today's event will unfold in the following way. You all have books already. I'm going to ask the authors a few questions, and then we'll open it up for a larger conversation. We have to get Rainn home immediately after this because he lives in a galaxy far, far away. And so we're not going to do selfies or autographs today. Today is just about the conversation. But like I said, you all received a copy of this book, and I encourage you to buy copies for your 20 best friends during the holiday season. It's a great gift. So you fired up? Woo. Yeah, you ready to go? Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, well, please join me in giving a warm Trojan welcome to Rainn and Shabnam. All right, great, good to see you. Thank you for being here, making time for us. You always do. I'm really very grateful for that. I'm just going to get right into it. Rainn, you were here last year with your book Soul Pancake, and now you're here with the
Soul Boom.
Sorry, Soul Boom. Gosh, so much soul. Too much soul.
Too much soul.
Soul
Everything's
Boom.
named Soul. Everything's named Soul.
And now you're here with Soul Boom, the workbook. What was that? Why? Why a workbook? And what was that journey from the book to the workbook like?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Varun. You're always so
course.
generous to support my work here at SC. And this is kind of like my secret other life, not so secret anymore, that I love spiritual journeys and talking about faith traditions, studying religion, and using spiritual tools to make my life better and your life better and people's lives better and society's life better. And this is something I'm really passionate about. And it's a pretty strange proposition that the guy who played a beat-loving paper salesman is going to write a book about spirituality. So when I wrote it 2 years ago, I had no idea how it was going to be received. And it came out and it did pretty well, and people have really been enjoying it, and it's continued to sell pretty well over the years. And there was really a hunger and outcry of like, hey, these are great ideas, and soul boom, why we need a spiritual revolution, because it's more of like a big think book about the generality of using spiritual tools to transform our lives and to make our world better. But they're like, well, what do we do? How do we use this? You know, how can I put this to use in my life? And from the get-go, Shabnam and I had talked about a workbook. We're big fans of this book called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a...
Does anyone know that book?
Anyone?
Oh, one person. All right.
Do you know the rapper Doechii? Do you know why she's a rapper? Because she did The Artist's Way. She talks about it on YouTube, on shows. And she was a performance artist, she was an actress, she was a spoken word poet, and she started doing The Artist's Way, and it literally changed her life, and it changed all of rap music, right? So these journeys can be transformational on one's life path. And we always thought that there was a gap here. Like, why is there not a workbook for finding a spiritual path? A lot of young people are what they call spiritual but not religious. Those are the nuns. They check none of the above on a, what religion are you? But they still feel a spiritual kinship. They don't believe that everything is just a random assortment of molecules and atoms, that there's some kind of life behind it or purpose behind it and behind this universe. So this is a book for the nuns, but even if you're evangelical, even if you're Hindu, even if you're Buddhist, Muslim, Baha'i like me, that this can deepen and enrich the faith that you ascribe to, we hope. It's really for everyone. It's about, well, we'll get into what it's about. So that's kind of the history and the story. And Shabnam and I co-founded Soul Pancake, which made 4,000 videos on YouTube and social media. And
Do you guys remember Kid President, My Last Days?
Anyone see Kid President in their
When they
high
were
school?
a kid, a baby.
So we made those videos, and we worked together on a number of different projects. Next year, we're going to be doing a documentary on God. So
Called The Notorious G.O.D.
small topic. So that's how Shabnam came aboard as well.
16 years.
What?
And so
So we've been working together.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. Like I said, we're going to feel really old by the end of this.
And so Shabnam, let's talk a little bit about this, because at USC we have many artists, many storytellers who work in creative teams. You working with Rain on many projects over 16 years. It's a really significant relationship in both of your lives. Can you talk about what a creative partnership looks like? What makes it work, and what's your process of working together so successfully?
I do all the work and he gets all the credit. No, I'm kidding.
On our first book, the Soul Pancake book, she did all the work and I got all the credit. That was absolutely true. But,
No, this
but
book,
most of our endeavors are not so much.
Most of our endeavors are very much so, both of us. I think we share a lot of the same views of the world, care about a lot of the same topics. And even though we come at things from different places, we kind of land at the same place in terms of how we view the world and what we think the world needs. when it comes to storytelling and art. And so I think that alignment helps with the creative partnership. I also think we both don't take things personally. Like if he tells me that's a dumb idea, I don't like cry in the corner. I'm like, all right, maybe that's a dumb idea, right? Like, so I think we can both be honest with each other about like the work and not take it personally. I think being detached from the ideas and just trying to make the best thing possible has been a big part of the way we work together as well.
Yeah.
Yes?
Well, I started as a theater actor in New York and trained as a theater actor and did that for 10 years. A lot of Shakespeare and regional theater and tours and, comedies and farces and all kinds of things. And when I came out to LA and started working in film and TV and I started like developing stuff too, I realized that there's this role that you read about so much, which is producer. What does a producer do, And there's a lot of myths about what a producer does, and there's cliches about what a producer does. But one of the things that I realized, like, it really is the most important role in Hollywood, in storytelling, in getting things done from point A to point B, and this is what Shabnam is and does at our heart. Because a producer is a very creative role. It has to have vision of like, this is the story we want to tell, this is the world we want to be in, here are the people we'll assemble to help tell that story, here's the budget we're going to need, here's the timetable we're going to need, here's the people we need to connect in order to make that happen, here's the money people we need to appease and chat up in order to make that happen. And it's an octopus that has a tentacle in all of these different fields, working with artists and being creative and with budgets. And so if any of you are hearing this and resonating, like, hey, I kind of have a wide, varied skill set, that might be something for you to consider. And producers work in a lot of different fields. Shabnam started in publishing. She was a journalism major, master's in journalism from Northwestern Journalism School. And when I first met her, she was kind of running all these like real estate magazines, and it's the same skill set. And so one of the reasons I think Shabnam and I work together very well is like, I'm an okay producer. I can kind of look at a budget. I can talk up money people. I can kind of look at a timetable. I can pitch projects pretty well, but I'm much more of just more firmly in the creative side of things. So there's been a nice synergy of two different energies that have the same vision kind of coalescing and working together. So,
and that's actually one of the ideas in the book is like, figure out what you're good at. We have a whole section of the book about community building, and literally one of the sections is like, what's the role you would naturally do if no one ever asked you to, right? Are you the person who connects people? Are you the leader? Are you the artist? Are you the, the networker who likes to just talk to people? Like, what's the role that you naturally fill? And I think that's really true. Like, we fill our roles really well. I have zero desire to be in front of a camera, and he does, and it's great.
It's like a marriage. So both of you have spent your lives, studying religion. For me, religion is, they're timely truths and they're timeless truths, and I think religion tries to get the timeless truths. You've thought about it in formal study, in your own practice, on your podcasts. You've done, you've studied what leads to human happiness. You've been fully engaged in this pursuit of, what is truth. How did you decide, mining from different religious and spiritual traditions, and I think also from Star Wars, how did you decide what exercises and practices to put into the book? And how do you know they work?
It's actually Star Trek. It's a different universe.
Sorry, yeah.
No.
I thought I saw something about
Star Trek is so superior to Star Wars. Oh, how could you? Idiot.
Listen, I'm going to find a Star Wars reference in this book because I think this may be a hill I die on.
I think there is
Yeah.
a Star
Actually,
Wars reference in this book.
The Star Wars has incredible spiritual mythology baked into it,
Yeah, that's
which then, in later years, in the J.J. Abrams versions, they sucked out. But if you look at those, the Force was a different way of experiencing the divine, of experiencing God. And this idea of like a Jedi, this, you know, these kind of like peaceful warriors that, you know, would put the blinder down when flying into the Death Star and close their eyes and trust the Force and lean into it is incredibly mystical. And also this idea of the promised one, you know, that's in all the religious faiths. Like there is a promised one, there is someone greater that is coming. There's a great teacher that's coming down the line that has powers beyond what you can imagine, this Messiah kind of figure. But so it started a very spiritual path, but got sucked out. So your question was about what, we don't know if it is going to work or if it does work or how it's going to work. But what we did is very specifically, we, why don't you open your books to
Turn
page.
to page. Yeah, class is in session. Turn to page.
We're going to turn to the very, very beginning. And it's right here in contents. So it's three pages in. Right here, contents. We have, as you can see, 4 parts, and they have between 3 and 5 sections in each one. And we wanted to take people on a journey. So we very specifically started with the internal, the soul, defining terms, like how do you define God? How do you define your faith and your religion? And then we start to expand out. You tiptoe out into meditation, prayer, finding the sacred, looking for the beautiful, connecting to nature, figuring out what are your values, what are your personal values. People don't like to use the word morality. It's kind of a dirty word these days. It has been for a while, but think about values as another word that you could substitute. And then we get into some deep, dark stuff, anxiety and mental health, tests and difficulties, death and dying, ultimately the meaning of life. And then finally, the last part, which was the most challenging, was how do we take these tools and put them to work in the community outside of us, around us? How do we bring people together with a service mindset and inspire and use spiritual tools to unite and galvanize in a common purpose? Very much easier said than done, and that section was really the most difficult to write. But this is why we organized it the way we did, is we're hoping to take people on a journey.
And I'll also say that I think so much of conversations around religion become about, mine says this, yours says that, we don't agree on this, you know, the rules are here, the dogmas are there, right? And come on in, is someone trying to come in? Yeah. Come on in. So much of conversation about religion and faith ends up being, you're in this camp, I'm in this camp, therefore we don't believe the same thing. And what Rain and I have always seen is that there are certain core ideas, love, compassion, service, community, all of these great ideas that are frankly very universal. And whether you're, you know, in the Eastern traditions or you're the Western traditions, you're in the Buddhist ideology where it's inner work, then outer work, or you're in the Christian faith where it's love is centered above all else, these ideas actually do emanate in every single faith tradition and practice. And so there's these core ideas that we said are actually more unifying than they are divisive. Like, you know, caring for others, loving people, even when they're different from you, like these ideas exist in every faith practice. And so how could we actually mine to the essential truths that felt universal? That was a really important part of this book as well. Because, you know, Rain and I have said this a lot, it's like people threw the spiritual baby out with the religious bathwater, right? We all said religion sucks for very good reason. Like religion has done a lot of harm. So a lot of people were like, religion sucks. And they all said, but I like spirituality. There's something out there, and I like the vibes when I meditate, and I'm, you know, et cetera. But we threw out a lot of the spiritual underpinnings, that ancient wisdom that's been around for tens of thousands of years. We threw it out along with the kind of push against religion. And we were saying, hey, maybe there's stuff we shouldn't have thrown out and that we should reclaim, and it might actually help us in our lives. And that was kind of the impetus. Yeah.
Both of you are creative people. You're creatives, you're artists, and you're deeply spiritual. And in both of you, I see those two traits, being deeply spiritual and being incredibly creative, as connected, as not two separate things, but as one informing each other. How might you help, what would you say to students who are thinking about creative expression and spiritual practice? How can they inform each other? How can they be aligned? How do you think about that?
Well, I don't think that they're different. I don't think there's a separation between them. I think in Western society, in Western culture, there is. If one turns to more indigenous cultures, spirituality and artistry and creativity were interwoven seamlessly. You know, weaving a rug was a prayer. You know, a dance was a prayer. Connecting with nature was an act of beauty that's reflected in the art that has to do with one's ancestors. And so we've only become fractured really since the Enlightenment, but really only the last, 1,500 years or so have we become dissociated from this. So in the Baha'i faith, we're both members of the Baha'i faith. Creativity, the making of art, is viewed as the same as prayer. So if you're putting on a dance, if you're DJing a set, if you're a tattoo artist, if you're creating a play or a film, if you're writing a poem, you are creating something beautiful where there was nothing before. And that is an act of prayer. It is an emulation of the divine impulse, an emulation of a holy spark on a blank page, on a blank stage, in a quiet room. So one of the founders of the Baha'i faith, Abdu'l-Baha, said in a letter to a young artist, said, "I rejoice to hear that thou hast taken great pains with thine art, for in this most glorious age, art is the same as prayer." That is to say, that when you put paintbrush to paper, it is the same as kneeling in the temple. And so this took me a long time to learn, Varun. This was really like halfway through The Office. I was really wrestling personally with, here I am, I'm an actor. Now I'm getting known for doing comedy, although I did lots of different kinds of acting before. And I have this secret side of me that loves spirituality. Like, how do I go be spiritual over here, when I'm meditating or at a Baha'i meeting, and then I'm goofy and creating weird characters over here. And it took me a while to see that the creation of Dwight is the same impulse as prayer and meditation and service from a spiritual standpoint. And I've come to see the fruits of that, where people say, "Thank you so much for The Office. It got me through such a hard time," or got our family through COVID, or something that me and my sister, when she was sick, we shared together. That it has brought people a lot of joy. The storytelling of The Office and the characters and the laughter that it's engendered. So we didn't go about to create The Office to provide a spiritual service for humanity. We were just trying to pay off our student loans and have a good time, but looking back on it in hindsight, it was really, that part of it was really revelatory.
Can I read 2 paragraphs from here? Class really is in session, guys.
There's a
On
quiz
page
after this.
123. Nature doesn't create a tree or snowflake because it needs to. It creates because that's what it does. It expresses and experiments. It is a maker. And when we humans make, when we play or sing, when we admire great art, or when we commune with the mountains or build a sandcastle, then we are participating in that same rhythm. At Soulboom, we believe that the universe never actually stopped making things. It just started using humans as the vehicle for creation. So as you move through this section, consider that you don't have to be an artist to be a creator. You just need to actively engage with all this majestic, swirling creation to be alive and maybe a little curious. And I think that's kind of the summary of like creativity and art. Like the world is a burst of creation, and creativity is very primal, I think, for human beings. And I think creativity and art unlock beauty and awe and wonder, which are vastly, vastly missing in the world today. We're also like this on these screens, that we miss the flower poking out of the sidewalk or the beautiful sunset because we're just racing through our days and responding to all the alerts on our phones, and we're not paying attention to the beauty around us. And if we want something that truly unlocks our brains, it's beauty and awe. All the science tells us that. All of psychologists would tell you that. Carl Jung says it's one of the 5 key pillars to a good life. I mean, beauty and awe are really important, and creativity, I think, allows our brains to access that.
Well said.
What's your favorite practice in this book and why? Is there?
I mean, on that note, there's one in here that's called Beauty Emergency, and it is one of my favorites because I do it with my kids. So literally, like, my rule in my family is if anyone sees something that's beautiful, they have to say beauty emergency, and we all stop and we look at the beauty emergency. And so for me, it's like things like, oh my God, look at that beautiful painting on the wall, beauty emergency. We all stop and look. My 5-year-old is like, Mommy, beauty emergency. I'm like, where? He's like, look at the fire truck. I'm like, yeah, cool, beautiful, right? So it's like, depends on who it is that the eyes of the beauty are seeing. But I love that activity because it's simple and easy. And in the book, what we tell you to do is like start a beauty group chat, like get on your WhatsApp and be like, okay, here's my beauty group. And like, I'm just gonna text this beautiful random thing I saw and just start a like text chain of beauty, because we don't often do that. I see you nodding. I'm gonna expect beauty text chains happening from this.
What that does is it changes your mindset, and then you go into your day looking for beauty in a way that you wouldn't normally do it. You're scanning your day for beauty.
Yeah.
You're seeing it in a way you wouldn't normally see it because your mindset has shifted.
This is, and what you're referencing is a big component of positive psychology. And I was just reading this book recently that was talking about how we're wired for negative thinking. And I think this is especially important for college students. Negative thinking, anxious thinking, allowed us to survive for hundreds of thousands of years. Because like, oh, that twig snapped in the distance, that could be a saber-toothed tiger that's gonna eat me. So living in kind of fear or anxiety is how we're wired. And it is a bias. I call it like a negativity bias. So a lot of this book is writing down gratitudes. You just came for the free book. Is exactly what Varun said, rewiring your brain to see beauty, to see the positive, to be in gratitude. And oh, thanks.
No, I'm just keep going, Rain.
Because you have to train your brain to collect positive images and impulses. It's a practice. It's a discipline. And unfortunately, what happens when we're looking at our phones 8 or 9 hours a day? How much negativity are we seeing? You're seeing an assignment due, you're doom scrolling, someone's bullying you online, you're seeing gross stuff online, demeaning stuff and scary stuff. And this sticks, positive psychologists talk about it like negative thoughts stick to us like Velcro, and positive thoughts stick to us like Teflon. So we have to try and reverse that. And a lot of the exercises in the book are about that practice.
And here's the crazy part of how much harder it is for the positive to overtake the negative. There's these famous marriage counselors, psychologists, the Gottmans, and they have this whole like framework around like relationships. And they have studied like thousands of married couples and like what triggers divorces with them. And they have found that the ones that aren't triggered by divorce, like triggered to get divorced, have a 20-to-1 positive to negative interactions. So for every negative interaction they have 20 positive ones. So just one negative interaction takes 20 positive ones to counteract in order to feel like you've got a positive relationship. It's not just, oh, we had one negative one, a couple positive ones, doesn't negate it enough. It's 20-to-1. So it's wild how much more effort it takes to get the to rewire our brains to accept the positive into it. It's like wild. Wildly hard.
And listen, this work is hard. This could be the most important book you will ever receive in your life, but you have to do the work.
The most important book
If
you
you
will
do the
ever
work.
receive.
Varun Sony.
Can they get me under,
Said we're
under
putting
Lisa?
it now on
Under
the
Lisa?
next. Yeah.
So, Shabnam, how should students use this book? Like, how is it organized? What would you recommend? Because this is not just a book you read and put away. This is something you work through. It's
Yeah.
the real work. It's the internal work.
Yeah, so none of you know The Artist's Way, so it's not a good reference for you. But with The Artist's Way, you know, one of the key things is you go through the book, you do all the exercises, and you get to the end, and then you come back and revisit the ones that really kind of landed with you. And I think that's important with this book. It's go through it. You know, we intentionally took you on a journey, as Rain explained. We start with the inner work. Too many books on like spiritual journeys stay there. Like we're just going to focus on internal and self, but we really tried to go external with it. And how do you actually take these tools and apply them externally in our lives, in our neighborhoods, in our communities? And so really get through kind of the journey that it takes you on, but then go back and revisit some of the exercises. 'Cause things like beauty emergency text groups, or, you know, there's activities around here around like, you know, you do a 30-minute workout every morning at the gym for your body. Why don't we do a 30-minute workout for our soul every day? Like, what does that look like? Does that look like journaling, gratitude exercises, listening to music, praying? Like, what does that look like? And like, go back to those things and say, okay, how do I make these real practices in my life to try to get that 20-to-1, you know, ratio to improve in my day-to-day life? And then the second thing I'd say is do this with others. I feel like all spiritual work is best in community. It's what the best parts of religious life always offered, was it was a community of people you could count on. And so many people don't have that anymore. We don't join churches, we don't join bowling clubs, we don't join boys and girls clubs, we don't go to the Y. Like everything is isolated and by ourselves these days. And so doing this with other people, like find a couple friends and do it together, I think will make it just more meaningful of an experience.
And if you do that, if you get a group together, I will give you space in our building. I will buy you pizza. I will provide the books for anyone who wants to join the group. If there is a Soul Boom, you know, student group on campus, I want to support that. You'll have everything you need to do it. And the only requirement is that you do it in real life, that you don't meet on Zoom, but you meet in person and you do it in real life. You can't eat pizza on Zoom, not yet anyway. So find me and we'll support this. This is something that I think would be a great seed to plant here on our campus and see how it grows.
And we will zoom in
Zoom in, we'll
They're in real life today. They're in real life today.
Boom, yeah,
club.
we're not going to drive down to USC. Give me a break. You know what the traffic is like?
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question, then we'll open it up. Rain, I want to go back to your first book, well, not your first book, your last book, the Soul Boom book that inspired the workbook. The book is called Soul Boom: Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. I think a lot of the work of that book and a lot of your intention was to inspire young people to be part of that revolution. So what is a spiritual revolution? Why do we need it? And how can our students be a part of it?
So I firmly believe that we are spiritual beings and we're having a human experience. And we get 80 or 90 years in our meat suits. Why? To what were we created? What is this about? It's about undertaking a journey of what? Self-discovery, certainly maturity, wisdom, increasing compassion, increasing service to others, building connection and community, creating things of beauty and meaning. This is our reality. This is our purpose. This is how we are wired. This isn't like some airy-fairy kumbaya idea. This is to that for which we were created. And humanity right now at this juncture has lost track of this. We think that it's about power, status, accruing stuff, gaining influence, and one-upsmanship. And we see this never more clearly than in politics right now, where there is, these two teams. There's the, Democrats and Republicans that are seeking power and influence and to denigrate the other side, to otherize the other side and make them the enemy. And we're tearing ourselves apart. And the government is completely dysfunctional. And the government is just a symptom of a much larger disease that's running through society, right? It's most seen there. But this same dysfunction runs through our educational system, our healthcare system, our agriculture system. Everything is based on profit and dopamine rushes and feeling good and exerting less work. And so humanity needs to restructure itself along spiritual lines. And how do we start that? Well, you start here, and we do it inside. And we start by getting connected to our soul and getting connected to the divine and getting connected to service to others. And once we can do that, and then we can do that with a group, and we can do that with a larger group, we can start to transform society. We can start to transform healthcare, agriculture, government, transportation, the environment, the climate, right? Climate as an issue, climate change, global warming, it's a symptom of a much larger disease. It's a symptom of humanity's greed and search for power and material goods.
Disconnection.
And disconnection, yes, disconnection from nature, where here we are under these fluorescent lights, and we should be sitting in the grass right now, right, Varun? So a spiritual revolution works on two ways. It's an internal transformation to get in touch with the truth of who we are, and in the doing, we attempt to transform systems to better reflect and resonate with that spiritual truth and power.
I love that. A lot of our students come to the university to change the world, to transform the world, and that's a noble aspiration. But I think what Rain is talking about is you transform the world by transforming yourself. And your real opportunity here at USC is to really think about that internal change. How do I transform myself and become part of the change I want to see in the world? And that's how if the world transforms itself, then the world is transformed, but it starts with the individuals. I'm going to go quickly into a lightning round before we open it up for Q&A. I was inspired by lightning round from your podcast, Rain, and these are based on themes from the book. So we'll just go, maybe Shabnam, we'll start with you. We'll just go one to Shabnam, one to Rain, back and forth.
Okay.
Some really light sort of questions, something really lighthearted. First thought, best thought. We'll be fully zen about this and quick answers.
Okay.
All right. What is the soul?
I'm going first.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
The soul, what is the soul? The soul is that ineffable little essence inside all of us that knows it's part of something bigger.
All right, Rain. What is spirituality?
It's reality.
Oh, I love that. Shabnam, what is the cause of suffering?
I think the cause of suffering is two things. It is part of the journey of life to improve how we we can't know pleasure and beauty and happiness without experiencing suffering. So I think it is a vital lesson that we all have to experience. But I also think that suffering can come from our thoughts. And the meaning we ascribe to the suffering comes from our thoughts. And that is a source of suffering as well.
Rain, what happens after we die?
Our true selves continue on a journey into the eternal. So whatever that means for you, but this is just the first part of our life and an eternal journey.
Shabnam, what is the remedy for loneliness?
Curiosity about other people.
Rain, what do you know for certain?
The Seahawks are going to beat the Rams this weekend.
All right. Shabnam, what brings you joy?
My babies, my 5-year-old and 2-year-old.
And we'll end with Rain. What is the nature of God?
The nature of God is an unknowable essence yearning to be known.
Oh, these are great. Wow, this is some deep stuff. All right, so this was really fun for me. We're going to turn it over to all of you. The only thing I ask is you use a microphone so we can pick it up on the video, that you introduce yourself to Rain and Shabnam. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can ask any question about anything. So who wants to start us off? Vanessa will.
Hi, my name is Nissa. I'm a psychology major. I'm currently a sophomore at USC. I just want to thank you both for taking the time out of your day to come here. At least for me, and I don't know if other people can relate, but sometimes it's really hard to ask like bigger questions about religion to like family members or just anyone in general. So I feel like this book will at least like help people with that, and I'm like looking forward to like actually like going through this book and answering all of the questions. And I know Rain, you probably hear about The Office so much, and I'm sorry if like I'm asking a question related to The Office, but I know that there was a scene that you did at Dwight where you were meditating in the morning and at like sunset every single day. Was there any correlation to how you were feeling like while you were filming?
I had forgotten that Dwight had scenes where he was meditating. That's very funny. I had completely forgotten that. Until now, no correlation. Sorry. Yeah.
I think I saw you in the floor.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Piper. I am a music industry major. I'm a freshman. And my question for both of you is, have you both always been like spiritual people, and how has that changed over time?
So I grew up a member of the Baha'i faith. Anyone heard of the Baha'i faith before? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Do we have Baha'i students here today? Any Baha'i students?
No Baha'is, and only 7 have heard of the Baha'i faith. So let me give you a little rundown, super quick. Baha'is believe that there's only one God, often referred to as, like I referred to before, the unknowable essence, who wished to make themselves known. Baha'u'llah says, I loved my creation, hence I created thee. And how this God is not a man, it's not patriarchal, there's no one with a beard, there's no clouds. This is a creative, all-loving force that runs through science and through beauty and through art and through eternity. And this force wants to educate humanity spiritually. So how does it do that? Well, it could just put it in our DNA or, send down apps from heaven. But God educates humanity by sending down divine teachers every 500 or 1,000 years or so. These are spiritual teachers. You could call them, some people call them prophets, some people call them messengers. In the Baha'i faith, we call these teachers manifestations of God because they manifest so purely the qualities of the divine. And these manifestations are going way, way, way back to Lord Krishna, to Abraham, to the Buddha, to Jesus, to Muhammad. And Baha'is believe that there's a new manifestation of God incarnate for this time, bringing a message of peace and unity for humanity, who goes by the title of Baha'u'llah, which in Persian means the glory of God. And Baha'u'llah is here to give us the tools we need to to transform the world. You can obviously hear some resonances in Baha'i belief in what we're doing in Soul Boom, although this is not Baha'i indoctrination materials, I assure you. So there's about 6 million Baha'is around the world. It's the second most widespread of the world religions. There's not a lot of Baha'is, but everywhere you go in the world, go to Mongolia, go to Denmark, go to Bolivia, go to Alaska, there's going to be functioning Baha'i communities there. So I grew up a member of the Baha'i faith, which was very loving, diverse, peace, love, and unity. And in my 20s, I really didn't want anything to do with religion or God or the soul or morality. I just wanted to go be an artist in New York City. And so I left the Baha'i faith for a long time, 10 or 15 years. And that started a spiritual exploration where I read the world's great holy texts and went on a path of self-discovery. And that led me ultimately back to the faith of my childhood. And so in my mid-late 30s, I started coming back to identifying as a Baha'i and kind of fully committing and investing into my faith and also into spirituality as a whole. So that was my journey. So, but was I always spiritual? Yeah. We all are. We all are all the time, whether we know it or not. Anytime you feel love, you're being spiritual. Anytime you're feeling connected, anytime you're appreciating beauty, anytime you're expressing curiosity, awe, or wonder, these are spiritual acts. Anytime you hold the door open for someone, that's being spiritual. Anytime you're thinking about putting someone else's needs in front of your own, that's being spiritual. So we all are on a spiritual path, whether we know it or not. We may not be as conscious of it as we would like. And frankly, for me, I suffered a lot when I was young. And I had a lot, and I still do to some degree. I have an anxiety disorder, get depressive sometimes. I've had addiction issues, loneliness, disconnection. I had a lot of mental health issues before it was hot and sexy. Before it was in. So I was an OG mental health sufferer. And spiritual tools helped me out of a lot of that. It didn't fix me. It wasn't like, I read the Buddha and then immediately it was just like, I'm happy now. It doesn't work like that, but they're tools I can put to use. You asked earlier, what is the cause of suffering? The Buddha says it's grasping, and we live in grasping, for something and clutching to something outside of ourselves instead of surrender in peace and in the moment to what's inside of ourselves. And so just working in that landscape can really work wonders on your anxiety. So if you're anxious, go Buddhist. If you want to change the world and affect humanity, go Baha'i. And you can actually do both, because a lot of people don't think Buddhism is a religion, but actually like an area of study, a mode of being. So
Lifestyle, yeah, that's true. Brains had a great answer. I don't know.
So leave it at that
So
then.
we'll leave it
Jesus.
at that. Yeah, fine. Get to other questions.
All right, we have a question in the back.
Keep moving. Okay. My name is Renee, and I'm currently a PhD student in education.
You're a PhD student in what?
Education.
Education.
And first, I wanted to thank you for writing this workbook. I think that people sometimes forget that everyone has their own theodicy, and so I appreciate that you made this workbook. Whoever made this workbook, so that everyone can go on their own theodicy and find out what works for them. And then second, I have a question for Rain. I was catching up as I was traveling here today and listening to an interview that you did with Seth Meyers, and you mentioned that you're a death doula. And I was wondering what role being a death doula has had on your The Odyssey.
Just to summarize the question, you're asking about Rain's role as a death doula. Okay. What is a death doula?
Yeah, so we know what a birth doula is, right? Someone to assist with a pregnancy, train you in how to give birth, what's going to happen, be there at the birth, and take you on that journey from being in one state, which is pregnant, and to another state, which is motherhood. So the same thing works for a death doula. I am not a trained death doula. I'm not working as a death doula. But actually, that'd be a funny movie if someone wants to be a death doula, so they start killing people so they can...
Oh, that hilarious, hilarious.
No, but I think part of this journey has been, for me, like, I think a lot of spiritual conversation begins with death. Because it's kind of the biggest question there is, and if anyone has experienced death, I'm sure everyone has, because with pets, you know, but it's profound and difficult, and it's the kind of biggest human issue is that we are all going to die. Everyone in this room is going to die, unless there's any vampires. No? Okay. Show of hands. Then I'm fascinated by it, and it's not an act that we talk much about or deal with directly in our culture.
And a lot of people, I think, come to spirituality because someone they love dies.
Yeah.
And they're like, I still feel their presence. I still feel like I can talk to them, or dealing with their grief. And they find their way to spirituality. If you're really interested in death doula conversations, Rain does an interview on his podcast on Soul Boom with Alua Arthur, who is an actual death doula and accompanies people as they're dying. And it's really fascinating, worth listening to.
And I just interviewed a woman named Hospice Nurse Julie, who has a big following on TikTok and on social media, and she's been there for hundreds of passings. And she has some beautiful stories and insights about, you know, what it is to die. And we look at death so that we can appreciate life. We don't look at death and like, oh, bummed out, man. God, such a bummer. That's how Trojans talk, right?
Those are Bruins.
Yeah, it's death is a great inspiration and mirror for why we're alive, and we get to appreciate today.
You know, especially in this country, we have a strange relationship with death. It's like the enemy. We spend 90% of our healthcare costs in the last 6 months of our life. We're trying to, you know, we can't accept the only truth in our life, which is from the moment we're born, we begin our journey to death. It's the core truth in our life, but it's hard for us to accept. But to Rain's point, if we don't make peace with it while we're alive, then I don't know if we can live as fully as we're meant to live. You know, with the understanding of death, it really does empower you to live in a particular way. We should all have a sense of urgency, because even if we live to 80 or 90, that's pretty young in the scope of a 14 billion year universe, right? We all die young, no matter when we die. And so I think having this sense of urgency of living life is the gift of death. But when we're in a culture where death is the enemy, death is over there, life is over here, death is in these sterile places, death is segregated, it's hard to have a healthy relationship with your own mortality. But I know this book has a lot of exercises that are focused on that. So,
The
I was
longevity, yeah. Go ahead.
I was recently in India, and we saw some smoke down by the river, and I asked the guide, like, what's going on down there? And they're like, oh, they're burning the body, and it's very clear they're burning the body of the father. My father had just passed away. There was something about the robes that the sons were wearing, and they had shaved their head, and there was a priest there, and there was a kiln for burning bodies at the side of the river, and the family is gathered around. Can you take in how colossally different that is than when a death happens in contemporary society, that you're seeing the body, you're setting fire to the body of your loved one, that you're with a priest, you're in this beautiful holy river. It wasn't, I forget which river it wasn't Ganges, but in Rishikesh, and sacred hills and mountains at the foothills of the Himalayas, and the sons shaving their heads and chanting and praying like it's incorporated into society, and families had been doing this in this region of the world probably for 20,000 years. So just a very, very different experience.
I lived in Varanasi, which is one of the oldest cities in the world, next to the cremation ghats, where people 24/7 were being cremated. And I lived in a little room with a family after I graduated from college. And every so often there'd be a loud popping sound that would like wake me up at night. And I couldn't figure out what it was until I realized those were the sounds of skulls that were exploding in the heat. And it was just a sound in the landscape. And every day I would like dust my room because there was so much dust. And I said to my host brother, I'm like, dude, I didn't realize Benares or Varanasi was so dusty. And he said, that's not dust, that's the ash from the cremation pyres outside your room. And we're just living in the ash and the skulls exploding. And it felt like a more honest and authentic sort of way of experiencing death while you're alive, or a healthier relationship that the people outside my window were having with mortality than I was having inside of that room with my own
But
mortality.
I see some people gasping, but what do you think your grandparents or great-grandparents did when there was a death in the family and there was a 60% infant mortality rate? Bodies were kept in the living room. They weren't kept outside because the rats would eat them.
You'd bury them in your backyard.
Yeah, and you'd wait until you'd preserve them on ice, and then someone would come by to take the body, or you'd bury them in your backyard, and the priest would come by and do services for, a body in your dining room. Like, death was a part of life, even in America, even in Northern Europe. So
We have a whole activity in the book on page 194 that is death rituals from around the world. Like fascinating stuff, like, a sacred dog is brought to view a body and ward off evil spirits in Zoroastrianism. Vikings used to, bury their dead on boats with weapons for the afterlife and burn them. People did a sky burial in Mongolia where the body is exposed to vultures to find because it's to symbolize life's impermanence. Like, there's so many sacred ways that we honor death everywhere, and we instead spend $4 trillion on longevity in this country, and we don't actually honor the meaning of death in giving value to our lives.
I've spent a lot of longevity.
Have you?
I have.
You're still here.
Barely.
Yeah. Next question. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm a senior studying PR and advertising. Thank you for being here. I've already learned a lot from the conversation, but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts on like psychoactive substances, specifically like psychedelics, and the role that they may play in someone's spiritual journey.
We put a tab of acid on page 197.
Yeah, just don't lick the page when you're flipping through it.
Personally, not a fan. That's an unpopular viewpoint these days. When I was a kid, I'm old enough to remember when like LSD was going to be the cure. LSD was going to bring people together, and you're going to drop out and tune in and turn on and find God and meaning. And then there was 80s. It was mushrooms and mescaline and various other substances and peyote and whatnot. And now it's like ayahuasca and ibogaine and all these others. And listen, I know a lot of people that have had really positive, beautiful, life-changing experiences on these drugs, but I feel like my really unpopular opinion is that it's kind of like instant spirituality, which is very consumerist. It's very Western consumer. It's like, I'm busy working my advertising job 60 hours a week, but you know what? Me and my buds have got a 3-day weekend down in Costa Rica. There's some shamans coming. We're gonna drop, ayahuasca and like find God. But I gotta be back to work at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, and because I got a big presentation for Nabisco. Like, that's kind of like that's the mindset.
Presentation after I lost.
Yeah.
Gotta say.
Crackers that talk to you, man. What is this, huh? So when native tribes use hallucinogens, it's woven into a way of life. There are many ceremonies for seasons, for planting, for birth, for death, for rituals and dances. And then hallucinogens are used occasionally as part of that, interwoven. So nothing against them specifically, and nothing against the use of hallucinogens to help with depression and addiction. And they're finding some great medical uses that are kind of a last resort for people that are very helpful. Amen. But I think this kind of recreational spirituality is a very Western capitalist way of experiencing instant spirituality. That's what I think.
And I have a number of friends who have used the, hero's dose of psilocybin, mushroom, what's in mushrooms, under a doctor's care to treat depression, and it works. So fantastic. Like, anything to help with our mental well-being is great. But the problem with kind of the pick and choose spirituality, which I am not a fan of, is that you avoid the hard parts of it, right? Like, it's real easy to take the drugs. It's really easy to say, I'm going to meditate every Saturday and just do the things that suit you. But then it's like, forgive your enemies. That feels hard. I don't want to do that part of spirituality. Fasting. I don't want to do that. That feels hard, right? So it feels very convenient to be like, I'm just going to take a hit of a drug. Like, fine. If that's one of the tools in your arsenal, no problem. But if it's the only tool in your arsenal, then to me, it just feels like another crutch. That's not the real wrestling with all the hard parts, frankly. Because like we said, this stuff isn't easy. It's really hard, actually, to make this stuff part of your life. And we like to avoid the hard things. So
I'll just add something. I agree with what's been said, but I'll also add that I think real change, we're talking about souls, I think real change happens at the soul level. You can incrementally change your behavior or habits, but when people have life-changing transformations, it happens at the soul level. And I see that happen if you have a near-death experience, or you have a mystical experience, or you have a born-again experience, some kind of revelatory experience. And I think psychedelic experiences are part of that soul experience of change. I've seen people dramatically change with their psychedelic experiences at a level that wouldn't happen through psychotherapy or incremental habit changing. It happens fundamentally, and it happens at once. But to their point, if you're going to think about it, it shouldn't be this recreational thing that you do on frat row on a Saturday night with your buddies after the keg stand. It really should be thought of as a sacred practice in a tradition that has a lineage of that kind of practice. And I would take it very seriously, not recreationally, not capitalistically, not commercially, very seriously as soul work. And it can be a tool in your tool belt, but it can't be the end-all be-all. It can help you glimpse something, but it can't be the thing itself. That, I think, requires other kinds of work. But I have seen real change with psychedelics. We're running our first ever psychedelic study right here, right now, this semester at USC in the Brain and Creativity Institute. We're testing the effects of people who are going through chemotherapy versus people who are going through chemotherapy with meditation versus people who are going through chemotherapy with meditation and psilocybin. And you can't placebo effect a psychedelic study because you either know it or you don't. So we're not even trying to do that. But to their point, this has become research science. It could be the case that psychedelics are rescheduled into out of their class 1, and that will open the door for research. 70% of our pharmaceuticals already come from the rainforest. So you would think that psychedelics, which is like medicine for the soul, would be part of that, but the laws have made it very difficult. That's changing. You could argue we're in the golden age of psychedelics, and everything is kind of changing right now. So we'll see where it goes.
Hi, my name is Violet. I'm a freshman theater major here. This question might be kind of basic, but I'm an atheist, and one of the most important people in my life is a Christian. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the importance of surrounding yourself with diverse and different viewpoints. Yeah.
That's not a basic question at all. That's
Especially
life.
now.
No, that's life. You're always surrounded by
important
people.
question.
It
Yeah.
is. You're always surrounded by people who are different from you. Listen, I said it before. I think curiosity is the key to unlocking almost anything. If you are curious about other people and genuinely curious about them, that's when you learn, that's when you grow, that's when it helps to improve your understanding. It's how you can talk to people who don't believe what you believe and to still have a civil conversation and a productive one. It's when you're really curious about others. So I think you are doing the right thing surrounding yourself by people who believe differently from you, because that's really honestly how I think we grow our understanding of others and how we find commonality. Like, we're never going to see each other as part of one giant system in connection with each other and the world. Like, we're never going to see that if we aren't curious about others, and curious especially about people who are not the same as us. That's my opinion.
And what the data tells us is that you can learn about someone different, but the real way you change your heart and your mind is knowing someone different. And so the best sort of education you're going to get at USC is the 50,000 other students you meet here and being in a relationship with them. Because you can learn something about the Baha'i faith tonight, but if you have a Baha'i roommate or a Baha'i girlfriend or a Baha'i coach or a Baha'i teammate, you're really going to have a whole different experience of what it means to be Baha'i. And so whatever you're learning in the classroom is important, but what
Then
you're
you're
learning—
going to be Baha'i curious.
Baha'i curious. And whatever you're learning in the classroom is important, but what you're learning outside of the classroom is more important. That's where real transformation happens. It happens in relationships with people, and it mostly will happen. You won't remember much that happened in the classroom over 4 years, but you won't forget the things that happened outside the classroom that transformed your life. And those are the things that happened with other people, where you got to know someone that you wouldn't otherwise get to know. So that's what you're here for, I think. You're here to meet other people. You could have taken these classes at any school, but you couldn't have met the people here anywhere else.
People are endlessly fascinating. They really are.
Vanessa, you want to use this?
Hi, thank you guys again for coming. This is from such an interesting conversation. I take some classes in the Fed department, which is the physical education. Sorry, my name's Araceli, and I'm currently studying NGOs and social change, but I have a minor in education, and I've specifically worked with preschool to like 9-year-olds in that age range, and I just have curiosity around. And I know, Shabnam, you have younger children, so I just have curiosity as to how best you would fit spirituality and like in I guess like how you would approach that with younger children, even teenagers or that. I feel like spirituality is something that we like think about and really discover as we get older, like move out of the house or like trying to figure out ourselves as an individual. But how would you say like is a good way of going to approach doing that within a classroom or within like a neutral setting and environment with younger children?
I mean, Rain has now, I'm a college student, so he can talk maybe about the teenage experience. I've not gotten there yet. I have the 2 and 5-year-olds. So, but I'll say that, you know, we say prayers. You know, we say prayers together at night. So that's my more overtly spiritual, and I talk about God and the soul and, you know, those kinds of things. So I have overtly spiritual conversations, but the non-overtly spiritual conversations with the 2 and 5-year-old are really about virtues and being present, right? So, you know, a lot of conversations about being patient, but what does patient mean, right? It's not just waiting, it's waiting and being happy while you're waiting, right? It's not, okay, I'm waiting, I'm being patient, right? Like that's not actually patience, right? So it's modeling and practicing virtues that I believe are spiritually founded. So I think that's a very non-overt way. It's like, how do you model and teach children, preschoolers, about patience, about assertiveness, about tact, about kindness, you know, all of these virtues that we are told, you know, have these spiritual essence. And then the second thing is really about being in the present moment. So how do you pay attention and notice what people around us need. Reading the room, right? Like, not saying it that way, but like, let's look around. What do people need here? What would be helpful in this room? What would, being really in the present moment. What is beautiful in this moment, right? Oh, look, I noticed that so-and-so is carrying a bag and maybe we should hold the door open for them, right? So it's a lot of articulating the noticing of the present moment is what I have found is the most helpful for that kind of preschool young age.
Yeah, I think Shabnam mentioned virtues. Part of the work that Baha'is do is education of children on virtues, because virtues are part of the divine. Kindness, humility, honesty, love, joy. These are aspects of our divine selves. They're not lust, greed, anger. Those are all part of the human experience. But so you can educate kids about virtues. Kids are naturally spiritually curious. They're curious about beauty, and they're curious about God and where things come from. And I also think it's really important, even at that age, to start educating them about humanity, humanity is religious. There's, the young woman identified as an atheist. Like, there's actually very few atheists in the world. It's in the low millions. There's 1 billion, and there's 2 billion Muslims. There's, help me out, there's
2.5 billion Christians.
2.5 billion Christians, 1 billion Hindus. So you're talking about, it's really good to educate the children on, the different faith traditions and quotes from those traditions, because that's part of the human experience and human culture, world culture.
I will say, though, atheists are the most religiously literate people in America. They know more about religion than other religious people, so they've done their homework. But to your question, 2 things. One is check out a book called The Spiritual Child by Lisa Miller. It's incredible, and it answers your question in a lot of different ways. The second is, I think there's part of it is like, how do we raise children spiritually? The other part of that is, how do we learn how to be spiritual from children? I have a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old behaves in the way that I want to behave as a spiritual person. He's non-judgmental. If he's happy, he's not wearing a mask. If he's sad, he's not wearing a mask. He's fully engaged in the moment. He's not distracted by anything. He experiences awe and beauty and wonder almost on an hourly basis. Everything is new and exciting to him. That's how I want to see the world. And it feels like we as children, we rush into socializing ourselves as adults, and then if we get on a spiritual practice, the rest of our lives we're trying to get back to that childlike state, right? And so I think the young children can be spiritual teachers for us if we see it that way. It's a 2-way street.
It's a really beautiful point, because that's so true.
Yes.
Hi Shabnam, hi Rain. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Adi, and I wanted to ask you guys if you guys have a North Star, and if you do, how do you find it?
The question is, do you have a North Star? And if so, how did you find it?
I mean, I would like to say that my North Star is, something profound, like serving humanity. But I'm a child of immigrants. I'm the oldest daughter of immigrants. I'm the oldest grandchild. And I could not be any other way than I am. And I will say, making my parents proud often feels like the real North Star of what drives me. It just, if I'm being real honest, I just want to make my parents and my grandparents proud. And yeah.
I'm sure you've done that.
I think I've answered that with the conversations that we've had, but I think something I would add to that is I always wanted to be a great actor. I wanted to pursue my craft and be the best that I could possibly be in my craft, and I was very driven and very hungry to do that because I believe that that is divine expression, and that no matter what it is, you're a school teacher or an accountant or advertising executive, whatever it is that ignites your passion to be to maximize your human experience, in that mode, is divine purpose. So,
excellence. is what you're
So
describing.
we're coming short on our time here. Maybe 2 more questions? Who wants
She
to?
had in the
Okay.
white shirt. She's had her hand up from the
All
very
right,
beginning.
So let's make sure we get you in this.
Hi, my name is Arya. I'm a first-year music industry student, and I'm a huge fan. You guys obviously both lead really busy lives. And how do you guys kind of find a balance and incorporate spirituality into your daily lives and channel your energy intentionally to have the most productivity?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on this. You know, Arthur Brooks has a great podcast called Office Hours, and there's a lot of like pods and YouTube videos about like productivity and whatnot. But one thing that's really important for me is like I get up really early and I take the time that I need to kind of get spiritually connected to my day in the morning. So I'm up most mornings at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and meditating as the sun is coming up. And I'm not one of these guys, and then I work out for 45 minutes, and then my cold plunge, and then I do my, but I do take some time for peace and quiet and meditation and prayer, contemplation, some journaling, and, you know, connecting with nature. And I cherish that time, and I find that when I do that, I am able to be much more productive because it kind of grounds me. And when I get up late, like 7, I
have a 2-year-old. Don't look at me. She's up.
yeah. So and then I'm scattered and grabbing coffee and running out the door or whatever. Like I am less effective in my conscious choices. So.
I will say this is a word that scares people, but discipline matters. It does. There's research that says that things, I think it's like, don't quote me on the number, but I think it's like 7 or 8 times that you have to do something out of a sense of obligation before it turns into enjoyment, right? And so building a habit is hard. But I will say, like, I'm pretty disciplined about, like, I say my prayers every night. I pray every night, and I don't feel like my day is done until I've kind of said my prayers for the night. I am pretty disciplined about going on a 1-hour nature hike every Saturday morning, and sometimes I take the 5-year-old with me, but sometimes I don't. I still like doing artist dates. Again, none of you guys know the artist's way, but she's got a big thing about like going out and experiencing art and creativity and beauty like regularly. And so like once every couple weeks, I go to even if it's just Michael's, and just like wander the aisles and see what interesting things are in the creative store. Like I'm pretty disciplined about the things that make me feel grounded. I start my mornings with music. Like I'm a big, like I wake up and the music turns on, person. So I feel like once you find the habits and the things that work for you to create your sense of inner balance, then do them with discipline and regularly, because it then becomes a cadence of your life. And then when you don't do it, you're like off saying, like I go on a vacation or I travel for a week and I haven't done the things that I usually do. And I'm like, oh, I feel chaotic. And then I come back and I get back into my rhythm. And I'm like, oh, okay, I feel better now. So nobody likes the word discipline, but it does kind of take a little bit of discipline.
She is the master of to-do lists.
I really am. I love a good to-do
crazy
list.
Do you use like the reminders app, or what do you do? What do you do? Because
No, I just like have a to-do. It's just a notes to-do list, and it's like super organized, and
she won't shut up about it.
And it's very prioritized, like highest priorities, and like I'm a crazy person. Oh, it's okay.
Here's a life productivity hack that I haven't been able to master. Every morning, write the 5 things you need to do down that day. The most important thing, write as number 1, and don't do the other 4 until you've done that one. I can never do that.
Wow, I like that.
All right. It is easy to do number 3 and
It's
4.
you know what I do? Like I will write a list and then I'll add stuff I've already done just so I can cross it off, just so I feel like I'm already
the
into the
easy
list.
stuff,
Yeah.
like,
I
yeah.
woke up this morning. I'm gonna
That's my
cross that off.
husband. He constantly adds things to the to-do list.
Just
I'm like,
cross
these were
it
not
off.
on the
You
to-do
feel more
list.
productive.
But I did them.
Okay.
All right, who wants to ask the last question this evening? Make it a good one. Vanessa, you have the prerogative.
I'm Nicole. I'm doing my doctorate in music. And I was wondering, just as like creatives, you talked about how like creating things is kind of a spiritual kind of act. And I hear a lot of chatter about AI taking over like creative spaces. do you see AI taking over like spirituality and like hindering it, helping it? What's the intersection there for you guys?
That's such a good question. That's a good one for you. What do you think?
It's an important question. There's a optimistic view, and then there's sort of the Gen X view of Skynet killing everyone. I would take the optimistic view
Does
that
anyone get that reference? The Skynet? Okay.
Skynet?
Oh, wow.
Anyone's heard of
Terminator?
Skynet?
No? Okay. All right.
3 people.
well, the wife is more popular than Terminator in this crowd. So I would listen. It's a tool, and so how we use that tool will be important. But this will be important because people are already turning to ChatGPT for companionship, for guidance, for counseling, for chaplaincy. There's a new Jesus ChatGPT where you can talk to Jesus. There's one being developed around all the spiritual leaders who you can talk to. At some point, we're going to have God as a ChatGPT with
There already is.
There
There's
already
a God
is.
AI now.
God AI. So all the inputs from all the traditions about God are there. And so someone like Deepak Chopra will say, well, this is actually what a guru is. A guru is the most wise spiritual person who can draw from all these different traditions. No one in 3 years will be more sophisticated than the guru GBT that is not just smarter than the smartest person who ever lived, but will be within 5 years smarter than the combination of all the smartest people who have ever lived put together, right? So the curve is exponential. So to think this won't be a tool in asking us the big, deep questions, I think, I don't think that's true. I think it will be fundamental, especially for a younger generation that grew up with a comfort level around companion AI. That said, AI is artificial intelligence, right? And Rumi said that the reason there's counterfeit gold is because there's real gold to imitate. The reason there's artificial intelligence is because there's human intelligence to imitate. And so what AI can also do is help us think about what it means to be human. The things that AI can do, maybe it can do better than us at some point, but the things that it can't do are what make us human. AI can't think about beauty or art. AI doesn't feel pain or pleasure. AI doesn't think about its own mortality or its personal relationships. AI doesn't have compassion or empathy for other people. AI doesn't have sex yet, but I think that's coming. AI doesn't live or die, right? So those are now the essential domains of what it means to be human. So AI can be a clarifying opportunity for us to double down on what it means to be human. And maybe in the most utopian version, in the WALL-E utopian version, where AI is doing the mundane stuff for us, we are now free to explore creativity and art and love and joy and all the aspirational things that we don't have time to do but are essential to the human experience. That's the best possible version of it, right? Let's see if we got there.
Can I say the not best possible version of it? So this is the thing that I've been wrestling with since you're coming from a creative industry perspective. So most people in the creative industry fall in one of two camps. It's like AI sucks, it's terrible, it's going to ruin things, we have to regulate it. Or AI is just a tool, human beings are so freaking cool and creative, we'll figure out how to use it, right? Like those are the two camps. My bigger concern is that our brains are evolutionarily wired to look for beauty and awe and creativity, to be amazed by the brilliance of creative things and moved by certain music. But when AI starts to create so much slop and the funnel becomes massive of all the slop that we're exposed to, how do our brains develop the ability to recognize the gems? Like, what will the effect be on our actual brain chemistry to recognize brilliance, to recognize beauty, if we're being bombarded with a lot of it? And so I think it then becomes almost like imperative for that human experience that Varun is describing, which is like what it means to be human is our ability to recognize beauty and awe and pain and pleasure. But like when it's so distorted by the slop, will that change our brain's ability to recognize it or what our brain sees as that? And so I think it's really just imperative for us to seek out the real life and not the artificial versions of it, because it's the only way to kind of keep our brain healthy in the face. Like it's like you got to seek out the real, like you have to seek it out. It has to become an imperative for us to seek out. Otherwise I think it'll change our brain chemistry. I don't know.
It's already starting to.
I think it already is, yeah.
We may lose the curiosity that Shabnam's talking about that makes us human if we're just outsourcing every thought we have to a companion ChatGPT instead of doing the internal discernment ourselves, right? I think we start to atrophy a little bit. We're not as smart when we read less, when we think less, when we can't sit with boredom, when we don't interrogate things ourselves, when we don't have conversations with each other. I think we start to lose, what makes us interesting, which is our brain power. And so that is a real, I think, challenge. And we began to see that with social media, how we just all of a sudden lost our attention spans. That's an atrophy of a skill set. No one can pay attention anymore. No one can watch a movie anymore without watching their phone at the same time. No one can remember a phone number anymore. I'm old enough to remember when we did all those things. And we can't do that. That happened in my lifetime, And so that's the scary part. But I want to end on a positive note, and I want to give Rain the last word here. Rain, here's a group of students looking to be part of a spiritual revolution, looking to change the world, looking to bring light to a world of darkness. What are your final prescriptive thoughts to them as they go out and do that work?
Well, I think one of the scariest statistics out there right now is about hope and young people. And there is what they call the hope deficit, where 40% of young people don't believe that change is possible and that the world will be better in the future. And that's a lot. And I think for anyone wanting a spiritual revolution, we just want to make the world a better place. And you're gaining skills here in your education to create things of beauty, to create commerce, to be entrepreneurs, to be teachers. And this incredible skill set you're being given can be used to not only make the world a better place, but to provide, the people beside you and the people younger than you with hope for a better tomorrow. Because humanity, I believe in humanity. I believe in humanity and its heart and its ability to overcome the challenges of AI, the challenges of political division, the challenges of abject materialism. And you guys are gaining those tools. So I just really give you this charge to take all of this valuable tuition money that your parents are spending and to put it to great use. And it really is true. It's not just like some kind of like vague hippy-dippy inspirational speech, but I really do expect great things from this generation and from you guys specifically. So thank you. Thanks for having us, Varun.
Of course. Listen, neither Rain nor Shabnam live in Los Angeles. They both traveled a great distance to be here, and they did it because they care a lot about you. And so please join me in giving all of our thanks and gratitude to Rain Wilson, Shabnam Margrabi,